So let's talk travel anxiety today. So today I have 6 topics regarding travel anxiety that I would like to discuss. So in the past couple years since we've moved, I had a major spike in my travel anxiety, and I never used to be that way. I would go on trips during the summer with my mother all the time, and while my husband and I were doing long distance when he was just my boyfriend, I would be traveling about every 6 weeks to Orlando, which I know it was just a short flight, but nevertheless, I was still flying at least, I was getting on 2 planes at least every 6 weeks. And then when we moved here, the thought of getting on a plane to come back to Louisiana for our wedding that we had planned, it was months away, but just the thought would seriously spike my anxiety. It was the idea of having to get on a plane, which now I'm definitely doing a little bit better with that. Well, I'm definitely doing a lot better with that, and I would like to attribute that to a couple of the things that I'm going to talk about today, as well as, therapy and medication and whatnot. But obviously, some things will work for some people and might not work for others. But I don't want that to discourage you from dealing with your travel anxiety or trying to make it better, because in all honesty, whatever you find that doesn't work narrows down what will work for you. Alright, so let's get into it. So the first thing that I found really helped me is recreating your routines. So let's just say in the evenings you have a specific routine that you like to follow. Maybe it helps you wind down from a stressful day. Maybe you have a lot of anxiety around nighttime and it kind of helps calm you down. Or maybe you just like routines. I mean, I am a very routine person, so there are certain things that I just like to do. So for example, I, for a while, would like to watch TV while I colored on my iPad. There's like this app, I think it's Happy Colors, but you can color, it's like a paint by number. So I would be doing that, and that would kind of like occupy part of my mind. And then the TV show, I'd put on a comfort show, and it would occupy the other, because I didn't really have to pay attention to it. So I would put on either that 70s show or Friends or How I Met Your Mother, which I've seen all 3 of those shows probably like at least 10 times each. So I didn't have to pay attention, and it was just like a very chill time for me. So the first time we went camping, I was terrified. We tried tent camping before, and I was so scared that a cow was going to step on the tent that when we got the teardrop and went camping in Moab right after we got married, I was just not ready for it. So I tried to overcompensate with that by planning and overthinking, and the overthinking is what got me. That's what was really like upping the travel anxiety. So what I did is I incorporated my routines into that trip to kind of add this sense of normalcy. And I knew that watching a comfort show and coloring on my iPad at the same time was something I enjoyed doing. So before we had gone camping, I wasn't sure if we were going to have service where we were in Moab, because it's quite spotty, and we were planning on boondocking because the weather was so nice outside, that I downloaded episodes of Friends to my phone on the HBO app so that I knew I'd have them no matter what the service situation was like. And then on my iPad, if you start coloring on one of the pictures, it'll save it, and then you can kind of still color it offline. So I went ahead and looked through and kind of saved some so that I could make sure that I could color them if we didn't have service. So I was good to go. When we got there and we started camping, and we got there very late, so we just ate some sandwiches and then we kind of looked at the stars and then crawled in bed, I was like, okay, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and start my nighttime routine. So I did, and it really did help with that anxiety at night. Like just, normalcy in the routine, even though I was severely outside of my comfort zone, did help it to be more enjoyable. The next thing is planning your trip. So if you're one of those people like me who has this big fear of the unknown that attributes to your anxiety a lot, it might help you to go ahead and plan out your trip. Like if it's somewhere you've never been before, and I don't mean just planning, hotels or where you can eat. I mean, plan the route. Like from here to Moab, let's just say. It is a 3.5 hour drive or so. But the first time we went, it was like, I don't know where we're going. I know we have to go through a canyon. I was terrified of being driven through a canyon. And so I looked at the route on Google Maps and just planned it out. Like, okay, the canyon is only from here to here. It's not that bad. Like, look for moose in the mountains because it was kind of that time. It really helped to know ahead of time, like where we were going, where we could stop, and then just from there, like how long it would take, what the route looked like. So I definitely highly recommend looking at the route if you're going somewhere new and that's just something you're worried about. And then additionally, if you're going camping specifically, some campsites are reservation only, and then some campsites are just like walk-in only at certain times of the year. Especially during the off-season, they won't take reservations, so it's just first come, first serve. Regardless, it definitely helped to do the research. So I'd highly recommend just planning your trip, and that will hopefully help settle a little bit of that travel anxiety you have. The next thing is to define your comfort zone boundaries. So it is great to go outside of your comfort zone. It's exciting, it's fun, but it's also pretty scary. And depending on your level of willingness to go outside of that comfort zone kind of determines whether or not you have boundaries with it. So, for example, when we first went camping, that was already so far outside of my comfort zone. Like, you couldn't even see where the comfort zone started. It was so far outside of it. So I knew that I had to draw the line at certain activities. Like, the first time we went off-roading in our truck was off the table, because that was just, in combination with already being outside of my comfort zone with the camping, it was just so too much. So being able to draw that boundary, I talked to my husband about it, and I told him, like, hey, I'm not saying no forever, but this first couple times we go, or at least definitely the first time, that's just too much. Like, I can't do that. And about the third or fourth time we ended up in Moab, we did go off-roading, because I had been used to the area enough and the idea of camping that I was willing to lift that boundary and try something else. Now, the first time we went down Gemini Bridges, which if you have been off-roading in Moab, we went up the side off the interstate, not the side by Dead Horse, which I didn't know what to expect at all. It was like a very last-minute decision to go, which is kind of against my I'd prefer to plan it thing, but I was like white-knuckling. I wasn't even driving. I was just white-knuckling like the handle at the top of the door. I was like panicking. I was about to throw up in the truck, and I'm like, okay, this is a little terrifying. No more after this, and next time we'll just go on something a little bit like less intense. And we did. And now I love it, because I was able to draw those boundaries and kind of set myself up for success with trying new things, as opposed to doing too much at once and having the anxiety stick no matter what. The next thing that really spikes my travel anxiety is food. So when I don't eat enough, or if I don't eat a good enough breakfast, then I get very shaky very easily, because my blood sugar spikes down. Like, it just drops, bottoms out. And so one of the big things that I do is make sure that we have snacks. Because when you're traveling, whether it's by car, plane, boat, train, anything, you might not get your meals at the time that your body is used to. And I am usually on a very strict eating schedule. Like, I like my breakfast right when I wake up, And then I usually have to eat a snack before lunch, otherwise I'd be eating lunch at 9 a.m. I'm used to early meals and lots of snacks to kind of keep my blood sugar under control. So when we're traveling, I make sure to eat a very filling breakfast, which if we're out on the road, my go-to is the bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit at McDonald's, because there's enough protein and fat and carbs in it to keep me full for at least 3 hours. And in that case, then I can eat a snack and then we can get lunch. I can hold out. So if you're the type to worry about what time you'll eat, or if you get too hungry and you have kind of feelings like that nausea or the shakiness or the dizziness that just really spikes your anxiety as well, definitely bring some good snacks like trail mix or any types of nuts, or bagels. I like bringing bagels. I'll eat an untoasted bagel if I need to, but I know some people won't. But just bring snacks that you know your body loves, and that should help with that. So the second to last thing that I want to talk about are coping mechanisms. So if you've been to therapy, you've probably worked on creating healthy coping mechanisms, and then if you haven't, then you probably already have some coping mechanisms that you may or may not realize that you have, whether they're healthy or not. But these coping mechanisms can seriously help with your travel anxiety. So a few of my coping mechanisms that really work for me are specifically playing Animal Crossing on my Switch, because it's just simple little tasks and it's very comforting. Watching comfort shows, even if it's just listening to them. So that's Friends for me, anything I've just seen a ton of times that I'm already familiar with. I can quote it. It just brings me comfort. So when we go camping, one of the big things when we started going camping and I was having a huge amount of travel anxiety is, what if we're in the middle of the desert and something happens? What if I get sick? I don't know. And I have to remind myself the rational answers to that. I have medicine in my backpack. If I get a headache, I have Tylenol. I don't have to just suffer. I'm not going to just drop dead in the middle of the desert. That's very highly unlikely. And then I remind myself also that my husband is a trained first responder. It's okay, for some reason, if something happened to me, even if I'm in the middle of the desert, I'm not going to be alone. Even if I was alone, before that, I'd make sure that I had the proper medical kits. We do have a first aid kit that we travel with. I'd make sure I learned how to do the, Heimlich maneuver on myself if I'm by myself. But things like that. I have to remind myself the rational responses to those irrational thoughts. And by doing so, accompanied with the comfort shows and Animal Crossing and the coloring on my iPad, it's kind of really helped that travel anxiety, so that once I'm in it and once we're traveling, it's a little bit easier to deal with. The last thing that I have on this topic is just remember, you're doing something you enjoy. I'm assuming that if you're willing to brave all of that anxiety that traveling causes, it's because you really want to travel. And that's fine. It's okay to be afraid of things. And it's okay to not understand why you have the anxiety. Or maybe it's just so deep-rooted that it just flares up. It's, you think about traveling and it flares up. There's really no rhyme or reason to it sometimes. But if it's something you really want to do, then do it. It's gonna be scary, but sometimes we have to do things scared. And that's the only way to get through them sometimes. But what I found in my experience is that I will start out very scared, and as I work through it, or as I'm doing something that I want to do, even though I'm scared, I start to think why was I scared of this? This was fun, or that was easy, or that wasn't as bad as I thought. And then the next time I do it, it gets easier, and the anxiety gets less. So hopefully some of these will resonate with you. Hopefully some of these are things that you already do. Let me know in the comments below if you have other things that really work for you, for your travel anxiety or for anxiety in general, anything. In the meantime, we are prepping for our first trip in this camper. So if you want to see that, follow along. And until then, bye.